have 70 ml, whatever volume, that is 70 ml volume. This volume is called as stroke volume. So this Hello students, welcome to Dr.Deepa Dahake's NEET Biology, and in today's session we are going to study about one of the most important topic, that is cardiac cycle. So stay connected with channel, and if you have any doubts and queries, so feel free to ask those doubts and queries regarding cardiac cycle. So when we study about cardiac cycle, so first you see what is cardiac cycle and what is the time for a single cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle, you remember, it is a regular event of contraction and relaxation of auricle and ventricle, or simply you remember, whenever the contraction and relaxation is take place regularly in auricle and ventricle of the heart, then one cardiac cycle is completed. In normal terms, when we study about the cardiac cycle, so two important terms we use. The one term is called as systole. Systole commonly used for contraction of muscles or contraction of heart chambers, that is auricle and ventricle. Parallelly, systole is also used for the depolarization of atria and depolarization of ventricle. The another term we use, that is called as diastole. Diastole is a scientific term for relaxation, and here you remember the parallel term for diastole we use, that is the repolarization. Now when we use these terms, so students, one attention you pay here, the systole and diastole term we mainly use during cardiac cycle, and when we study the ECG or electrocardiograph, then we use these terms, that is depolarization and repolarization. Now first we see what is the time period for a cardiac cycle. So here you remember 0.8 second is a time period for a single cardiac cycle. So one cardiac cycle, you remember, completed in 0.8 second, and in this way, in 1 minute or in single minute, you can say in 1 minute 72 times cardiac cycle is take place, or commonly we say heartbeat is completed. So 72 time heartbeat is completed in 1 minute, because the one cardiac cycle is completed in 0.8 second. Here we study what are the phases of cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle, you remember, completed in 3 phases. The first phase of cardiac cycle is auricular systole or atrial systole. So auricular systole. Second phase is ventricular systole, and the third phase is diastole, that is complete diastole. We using this term for the phase. So complete diastole, that means auricle and ventricle both are undergoes in diastolic condition. Diastole means both the auricle and ventricle gets relaxed, or they comes in their original position. Now when we discuss about the time period, so one cardiac cycle, you remember, completed in 0.8 second, and for auricular systole, you remember, auricular systole is completed in 0.1 second. The ventricular systole is completed in 0.3 seconds, and the complete diastole is for 0.4 second. So this part you remember, this is the time period for the individual phase of the cardiac cycle. If we study this cardiac cycle along with the diagram, so here you remember nodal tissue, you already know the nodal tissue is responsible for the impulse conduction. So here you remember this is a phase 1. Phase 1 is called as atrial systole or auricular systole, and this systole is completed in 0.1 second. After that, the wave of systole or wave of contraction is transported towards the ventricle, and the ventricles comes in systolic condition, or you can say depolarization of ventricle is take place. The second phase, which is completed in 0.3 second, and commonly this phase is called ventricular systole. Now when we come towards the diastole, complete diastole is a third phase, and this phase required 0.4 seconds, where the complete diastole or joint diastole it is also called. So joint diastole you can also remember. So diastole is take place. So this is a general representation for the cardiac cycle. Now how does the cardiac cycle is take place, and how much amount of blood is pumped by ventricles in each cardiac cycle, that we study. So to study the complete phenomena or complete phases of the cardiac cycle, here one time again we go through the diagram which we already study in nodal tissue. The students who are new for today's session, they can go through the previous video. This is the general structure we draw here for the heart. This is the wall, only single layer I draw here, because we mainly concerned with the nodal tissue, because the nodal tissue is mainly responsible for conduction of heartbeat. So you remember these phases of the cardiac cycle, and along with these phases how the heartbeat is conducted and contraction and relaxation is take place, that we discuss. SA node, you all are knowing the position of SA node. It is located in right upper right corner of the right auricle, and from SA node when the impulse initially, you remember both the chambers are in complete diastole, and when the SA node is responsible for the conduction of impulse, that impulse is conducted for the contraction. So because of that, you remember the impulse from SA node is transported towards the AV node. This you remember, this is the AV node. From AV node one bundle is developed, that bundle is called AV bundle, and this AV bundle divided into left and right bundle. This all part we already studied, so I am not going to explain this part again. And these are the Purkinje fiber for the musculature of the ventricle. Now what is happening? The SA node, when responsible for the wave of contraction or when depolarization is take place, because of depolarization of SA node, both the auricles get contracted, and because of that the cuspid wall, bicuspid and tricuspid, from these cuspid wall blood start to flow inside the ventricle. So during the contraction or the first phase atrial systole, the blood from auricle enters into the ventricle. At this time ventricles are in diastolic condition, and nearly 30% blood is more transported from auricle towards the ventricle. Slowly the impulse of contraction or depolarization is transported towards AV node, and through the AV node and AV bundle, you remember AV bundle when undergoes in depolarization, the second phase is begins, that is called as ventricular systole. So ventricular systole, you mainly remember ventricular systole is governed by AV bundle, AV left and right AV bundle, as well as by Purkinje fibers. Because of that the volume of the ventricle is decreases. Why? Because the ventricles are enter in process in the phase of contraction. When both the ventricles are contract, so here you remember to prevent the backflow of blood, immediately both the cuspid valve, bicuspid as well as tricuspid, the cuspid valve get closed, and due to closing of cuspid valve, first heart sound is produces, that is called as lub. Now further increase in the intraventricular pressure, due to further increase in ventricular pressure, the semilunar valve which is now closed, ye ab semilunar valves become open and the blood from both ventricle forcefully pump into the respective vessels. That is, from left ventricle blood is pumped into aorta, and from right ventricle blood is forcefully pumped into the pulmonary artery. As the blood pump into the aorta and pulmonary artery, the pressure inside the ventricle is gradually decreases, and again to prevent the backflow, the semilunar valve further close. So here you remember the pressure of ventricle is mainly responsible for opening and closing of semilunar valve as well as for the cuspid valve. When the ventricular pressure is very high, the cuspid valve close and semilunar valve open. When the intraventricular pressure decreases, at that time you remember the semilunar valve closed and the ventricular cuspid valve get open, and in this way the second phase of the cardiac cycle, that is ventricular systole or depolarization of ventricle, is completed. The next impulse is generated from SA node. That impulse is for the diastole, or we can say repolarization is begins at SA node, and now both auricle and ventricles comes in a systolic condition, that is they are in relaxed state. In relaxed state, you remember again the auricle is ready to receive the blood from pulmonary vein and vena cava. So from pulmonary vein, the oxygenated blood start to enter or start to pour in left auricle, whereas the vena cava is responsible for pouring the blood in right auricle as well as from inferior and superior vena cava. You remember blood is poured in right auricle. Again the second cycle of contraction is begins and the same events are take place. So this part you remember, when the auricles contract, cuspid valve slowly क्या हो रहे हैं आपके open, and from contracted auricle blood start to flow in ventricle. When the contraction of ventricle begins, the cuspid valve get closed to stop the backflow of blood towards the auricle. Further increase in ventricular pressure responsible for opening of the semilunar valve, and blood from ventricle forcefully pump into the respective aorta as well as pulmonary artery. Now as the ventricular pressure decreases, semilunar valve close and the cuspid valve get open. So when we study the cardiac cycle, this part you remember. Now how much amount of the blood is pumped by ventricle? So this you remember when we study about the cardiac cycle. So one important thing you remember, the 70 ml of blood transported or pumped by ventricles in each cardiac cycle. So this part you remember, and this volume is actually called as, this entire 70 ml whatever volume, that is 70 ml volume, this volume is called as stroke volume. So this part you remember, stroke volume is 70 ml for each cycle of the cardiac cycle, and when this stroke volume you multiplied by the heartbeat in per minute, that is you multiplied by 72 times, then automatically you obtain the cardiac output. For a healthy person, cardiac output when we study, so cardiac output you remember, the cardiac output in healthy person is nearly in 1 minute 5000 milliliter or 5.0 liter blood is a cardiac output. That means the 5000 ml of blood is pumped in 1 minute by the heart or in 72 time when the cardiac cycle is take place, then nearly 5000 ml of blood is pumped to the various part of the body. So this part you remember. Second, another part when we study about the cardiac cycle, so heart sound we study. Heart sound, here you remember when we study about the heart sound, two types of heart sound we generally study. One is called as lub and second is called as dub. Clear? So lub you remember, lub is a first heart sound, and when it is produced, this is a first heart sound commonly, and during the heart sound you remember closing of or closure of cuspid valve. Whenever cuspid valve close, then it responsible for the production of lub. Dub is a second heart sound, and this second heart sound you remember, this second heart sound is developed due to closing of semi-lunar valve. So this part you clearly remember, when will be the first and second heart sound take place and what are the reason for the production of these first and second heart sound. So this part you remember for the cardiac cycle. One time you again go through the entire video, so you each and everything clear to all. Finally revise the stroke volume as well as cardiac output, depolarization and repolarization. Again you revise. Depolarization conceptually you remember, depolarization means contraction and repolarization means relaxation. SA node is mainly responsible for the contraction of auricle, AV bundle, left and right AV bundle, as well as Purkinje fiber you remember for the ventricular contraction or ventricular systole. So this much is for today's session. In next session we will discuss another important topic for your upcoming NEET 2020 exams. By that time you stay motivated and stay blessed. And again the students who are new for the channel, उनको कहूँगी कि kindly subscribe my channel, like my videos, and if you have again any queries and doubt, feel free to ask.